I wanted to ask you, we've been talking about cancer and your diagnosis and your recovery, but constant in your life has also been music, right? From your childhood, where you were
Yes.
interested in music and, of course, Bollywood and Hollywood and the entertainment industry in general. So, what has been the soundtrack to your life? Has it changed over the years? Did that also go through this shift?
I think it, for the most part, has been probably the most consistent thing.
Okay.
I would say my soundtrack has always been top 40 because yet it again fits with who I am. That for
Hmm.
me, what makes the most impact to a society, whether I like it or not, or whether I personally connect to it or not, it's something I need to know. And it's the reason why I need to know is because it's obviously affecting society.
Sure.
And that is a great gauge of, it gives you a great historical perspective as well of a certain time frame, of a certain moment, of a certain life. So, even in my book, every chapter, the start of each chapter, the title was actually song lyrics.
Sure, sure.
And so even in that world, I made sure to have music be a part of it. And it's really, the soundtrack hasn't changed. It's probably, I wouldn't even say it's expanded. What it has done is, I think the meaning has deepened even further,
Hmm.
where I instantly know what song will make me feel a certain way. So it's emotion based. And part of that obviously is sonically how a song feels while you're listening to it, lyrically, what it captures. Um, these are things that I definitely think I gravitate towards things that I used to like as a kid.
Hmm.
I think the older we get, we feel more passionately about the music we grew up with.
Sure.
But I think I'm one of the few people that at my age, if someone asked me, about the top 10 right now, I would know every artist and I would know every song and know the lyrics to that as well. So for me, you have to, with age, I have to continue knowing what's popular, even if no one my age is listening to them. And it's only 18-year-old girls listening to that
Sure. Because it's
particular K-pop band. I'm okay with that.
because that's a regular thing. Parents always saying, "Oh, the trouble with this generation is that music sucks."
Exactly. And that's not the case. All music is good. Music evolves, and ultimately, if it's your kids that become the musicians of tomorrow.
Sure.
And their influence is a generation that you were a part of. And what you listen to inspired what they're making.
Sure.
So it's very, very full circle. And
And it
and I
works
think
both ways, I think, because a lot of parents assume that role that stop playing the BTS, you should be listening to Pink Floyd.
exactly.
But it should maybe work both ways, where the kids should say, you should be listening to BTS.
Absolutely. And it again, it bridges people. It's a way of bridging communities, families, individuals together. And it's important because the more and more segregated we become musically, or even entertainment wise, I would say in general. I mean, now you have 7,000 streaming services, you have every kind of film, TV series, web series, and music style available. And keep in mind, when we were kids, access to any of this was a challenge. So we almost had to pick our lanes that, either I could afford to buy one record or another record, and that would be the soundtrack
Pretty much.
for a moment. Whereas today, kids have access to everything instantly all the time. So they're much more likely to have a much more eclectic taste than we do.
Absolutely. I remember as kids, we used to get cassettes.
Yeah.
And cassettes from our cousin in the US. They would come like once, maybe in 2 years or something, and they'd bring like 5 cassettes, and that would be our soundtrack. So I remember Motorhead, Ace of Spades. And I was a metalhead then because
Because they sent
they
it.
chose Motorhead and U2 or
Mhm.
whatever, UB40 or something. So that became the music you kind of listened to. And you
Exactly.
couldn't Shazam anything. You couldn't, Spotify was not there. So it was really,
There
uh,
was hardly radio. I mean, there was no TV
absolutely.
TV programs. I remember when MTV just started.
Yeah, yeah. It was
In
such a thing.
Channel V. What was it? Channel V.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah.
I actually ran away from school because I wanted to watch MTV.
But yeah, music has been a great constant, and today I'm very lucky to be able to, very full circle. One of my first job out of college was writing for a music magazine, and today I'm still writing for a music magazine. But so much has changed. Back then I was a beat reporter telling, they would say, Destiny Child is performing, go and interview them, or, write about, this artist or whatever. And today I'm choosing what I want to write about. And the autonomy that I had in writing my own memoir and then writing articles in my perspective about whatever things are happening in the world, to now be able to do that in music, which was sort of my first passion, now to be in a position of being an expert, so to speak.
Wow.
It's been humbling, but it's also slowly but surely me trying to find, sort of cracking those tiny little notes where if I'm talking about an artist or if I'm talking about a new artist, talking about why that is important and why it's an important moment in music history, but also in understanding the larger context. It's we need to have more writers, we need to have more creators, we need to have more well-rounded individuals that aren't merely in it for their own agenda, but are looking to transform the dialogue from being just clickbait or tractions and metrics to being a little bit more than that. Starting conversations, starting dialogues, talking about impact, talking about why this resonates. Because there are very few things that connect us now. Music is one of the last things that remains that still connects people.
Sure.
And we need to frame conversations around that. India's a massive country, and it's unfortunate our music history is so poor. There's no, aisles and aisles of books about music history in India.
True.
People know maybe the same 10, 12 artists. They know the same 10, 12 songs. Radios play those same 10, 12 historical songs. Or even in Bollywood, everybody knows the same 6 movie songs from the 90s. It's, some Shah Rukh Khan movie, some this. They don't know the deep catalog. And you don't even have access to it.
Sure, yeah.
So we need to get better with that. So I would do a year-end recap. I've been doing that since, I want to say, middle school.
Wow.
I kept track, and I would put my favorite songs each year. Then in college, it became something that I shared with friends over email. Then it became something I shared with colleagues at the magazine. Then it became something that became the sort of chain mail that went out to everyone. And now it's become something where it's not just me alongside other people. It's just my own personal list, and it started with mixed tapes. Then it became mixed CDs. Then it became, for a while, there was the mini disc. So it became mixed mini disc. Then it was MP3 files. And now it's on streaming. So even though technology changes or upgrades with time, music still keeps going on. And it's also, for me, it's the only thing that I don't keep a diary per se, but my diary is my music.
Your playlist is your diary.
My playlist is my diary. And especially the year end, I'm extremely critical. So if I've listened to Cotton Eye Joe 5,000 times because it was being played, even if I don't like it or I'm embarrassed to say I like it, it'll still chart where it needs to chart in my year-end ranker. Sure. Because I don't discriminate. Let's just put it that way. So I think that's important as well to share out there, because every critic, for the most part, will list things that make them look cool,
Sure, sure, sure,
as
sure.
opposed to what they actually like,
Hmm.
as opposed to what they actually listen to. And I think, that honesty that comes from sharing that is really, again, I don't know how many people it impacts, but I do think it does, because I get year after year from people like, oh, I hadn't heard of this person, or I can't believe you included this. And it's, we shouldn't have fear of judgment.
Sure. In fact, I read some artist's post who quoted your list and saying, "Thank you for including me in the list." And does that happen often?
It does. It does. Well, yeah, because they like obviously getting a shout out and
Yeah, and sometimes it's artists that are not very well known also, and
Correct.
you bring them up and you.
right.
That's always interesting.
And that's the thing, is because we know how subjective music is that ultimately what makes a hit and what makes a flop sometimes has nothing to do with the song.
Sure, sure, sure. And it's so vast now. The catalog is so vast, as you said, that we have access to, that the joy of discovering new music is endless now.
Exactly. And so you do have to find a way in which to curate it. Otherwise, it would feel overwhelming. And that's the thing, is that at the end of the day, we end up devaluing everything when we give value to everything as well. And so there has to be, sort of magazines and critics and charts and all of these things matter, because otherwise we'd not be able to archive anything. Because if we
Sure.
try to archive everything,
It's impossible.
It's impossible. It's like kids today who, post every 10 minutes on TikTok. At a certain point, it will exhaust itself.
Sure.